It is not the fault of Okoboy, sir.
Who? It's who?
Oh, but the MP is not responsible for constructing roads.
Ah, which MP? MP akwa ke Okoboy ke akwa na fe gbene wo Ekowo e
The MP is not responsible for constructing.
If you talk to us. If I talk
to you, say what?
You know, for this road.
Why, but the MP not being the construction.
Who go do the road?
MP knows my number. It be government urban road.
We don't know government. We know Okoboy. Okoboy will if you talk to us.
You people, your matter hard.
I buy budget. Almost a budget for this road.
We dey buy what budget?
I get triggers. Man, God spoil for this road. Why I go figure money to chop?
What be your name?
Kweku.
Kweku, relax.
I don't go this one no grass. The car.
So the anger.
Recently, I go buy my stocks about say roughly 3 weeks now. But then when you sit inside to nearby places, you see say it's too rough. You see they make and that's very terrible.
And since then, we've had word officially from the Ministry of Information that government has decided to award a contract to another contractor. It is all because we've had an entity that is based in the Emirates or Dubai that has decided to express some interest in sourcing funding to tackle this project as well as other projects we have in the country. And we also know that to keep up with the conversation and also make sure that you also contribute meaningfully, you always have to affix or attach our popular hashtag #FixLekmanNow and also JoyNews to all comments and messages you send throughout the day on our social media platforms in relation to the subject. Facebook, JoyNews on TV, a Twitter handle at JoyNews on TV, and when you're watching us also on YouTube on the channel, My Joy Online TV, we want your comments to come in. But following that now press conference that was convened and a statement subsequently shared not only to JoyNews but also across the media spectrum, we now know that, well, some efforts have been made. For example, the contract for the construction of the Teshi Link road, we know, was initially procured through national competitive tendering according to the document that has formally been given to us and awarded to Marlin Investment Limited, and that was way back in June 2015. And subsequently, we've had subsequent payments made. The contractor subsequently abandoned the work for obvious reasons, as has been enumerated not only by the MP, but also those related from the ministry especially. There was a second one that was also awarded to another company, but the work itself did not even start for it to begin. In essence, it means that the work had been outstanding until now. Now, subsequently, we're going to have a third contractor working on the project. Well, what do we want to do? We want to have some greater conversation, not only bordering on the Lekma Road, but also looking at the subject of procurement and the processes therein in relation to fixing the Lekma Road, but also other related arterial routes and main roads in the municipality and also those are journeying across the country. We have a regular on the show who is a procurement expert and helps us in looking at many of the inherent procurement issues that will plague contracts and works across the country. Kobna Atabidu is our guest this morning. And again, if you want to comment on this, make sure that you add the hashtag #FixLekmanNow and JoyNews. Good morning to you, Kobna.
Good morning, Roland.
Great. And you followed our coverage the whole of last week.
Yes,
What would you say it was? Well, was it meaningful? Was it helpful? Was that the way we had to go about it?
I think what happens is that when society has expectations of its government or its leaders and their expectations are not being met, it builds up slowly and swells. And that is what we are seeing. From then onwards, you can never tell what can happen next. So you have helped to bring the information to light. It seems Ghanaian government, that is the language they speak best. So anytime there's an uproar, and you take a cue from what happened on the Legon-Adenta road when people were being killed and no action was, as soon as the people took up, they were forced to act. So sometimes this is the language they understand.
Now, subsequently, we're now talking about contracts and even to a third entity possibly, and that would mean some relief for those agitating who are residents and those who tend to ply the road. Have you cited the statement that has been issued so far around?
Yes, I have a copy of it in front of me.
What do you make of it?
For the people living in and around Ishi, and I use that road sometimes.
Oh, you
so
do?
I know how bad it is. I've seen how bad it's been and how long it's been like that. So for them, it's good news. For us in industry, we have a cause to worry. And having read this as a procurement person, trained in this field, I have serious concerns about how we run procurement. Listen, I've made this statement here before. I have said it several times in our professional groupings. The way we practice procurement, in a couple of years' time, there will be no need to train anybody.
Why is that?
Because nobody can apply the tools we are supposed to use to do our work professionally because of the way we make our decisions.
Which tools are those?
Okay, so classically, let me use this.
Oh, you want to go to the board?
Yes, I want to come
Yeah,
here.
okay. So we're going to
See, before you decide to make any purchase, we have what we call the Kralich model. Maybe I should stand here. We have what we call the Kralich model, which basically maps what your supply risk is. Now, basically, your supply risk is how many suppliers are there in the market who can do the job. And then it looks at the financial impact. So how much is it going to...
Can you use the black instead? The one that has the red cover. I think that's a black one.
So this one is looking at the financial impact, and this one is looking at your supply risk. So basically what you are saying is that how many suppliers are there in the market? Where there are few suppliers, you have a higher risk.
Okay, and we have 4 quadrants, right?
There are 4 quadrants. Where we have a lot of suppliers, then you have a lower risk. Now, where the financial impact, the cost is less, low cost, and then high cost. So you ask yourself, what is the cost of this transaction? And how many people are there to do it? Now, if you come to this Lekma Road, this is civil engineering. How many civil engineers do we have on roll in this country? If you go to Ministry of Housing, Works and Housing, they are registered there, so we will know. So we don't have a supply risk.
Because
now,
they are registered?
Because there are many. You want 1,000, you get. Then you come to financial impact. Is this something that is 10,000, 5,000? No. This is millions of cedis. So it has a high impact. Now, from a theory point of view,
a high impact on...
a high financial impact.
Okay.
It will cost you more. So
on who is financing? And that will be government.
Yes. So the theory is that where you have a high cost exposure and there are a lot of suppliers, the default is to leverage. And that leverage is competitive bidding. So when the Act says that by default, every procurement should be by competitive bidding, it is on the basis of this theory that says that this is how you can use competition to push the cost down, because your objective is to drive cost down. And if you have a supply risk, your objective is to diffuse your risk by moving.
And the supply risk is that you don't have, many competitors or many service providers.
So in a situation where you have few suppliers,
which is not this case. Which is not the case in this.
Which is not the case. The cost is not high. We call that a bottleneck. And that is what the Act makes provision for, that this is what you use restricted tendering. This and this, competitive bidding, national, international.
Okay, so let me just do an interpretation while you're there. You're saying that this is not a road for which any contractor who is a service provider would have said maybe we are just a few.
Yes.
But we have a plethora, many of them.
Because they can't say that we have a unique technology we are coming to use that nobody has.
Or even this is just a simple road.
It's a simple road.
Okay. So that also reduces the risk.
It reduces the supply risk.
Okay.
So there is no justification for either going restricted tendering or sole sourcing.
And ultimately that could also influence the cost by lowering it.
Anytime you force suppliers to compete, because they have to compete to win, they become more aggressive. So they are able to reduce their margins. Anytime you give them a free range, you say do sole sourcing, you are giving him a carte blanche to go for the moon because it's only him.
So you are worried.
Not in our
you are
interest.
worried. We seem to be using sole sourcing subsequently since the first contract.
We have been using sole sourcing and restricted tendering for things which should normally be here, not here. And that is the biggest problem. So if we say we want to create value for the state, we want to preserve money, we want to protect the public purse, this should not be the default.
Are you done?
We are having more of this.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm done. Now we can come to.
So does it mean that you're worried that the way the state has gone about this since 2015, we're spending more on the projects which for the cost layout should have just been a simple competitive cost? So for this report, it gives us an IPC number 2 that was built. What is IPC?
Interim payment certificate. So it means the contractor would have completed a stage and then engineers would have certified the completion.
What does it say about the first contractor? How much was paid to him, or subsequently in what terms? So
the report the Ministry of Roads gave doesn't state the contract sum, so we can't tell the full contract sum. It didn't state the IPC 1, which I want to presume was the mobilization. But the contractor issued 5 certificates that he's completed those works. So IPC 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, all of them put together is 25.4 million, almost 25.5
paid to the first contractor.
To be paid. It hasn't been paid. To be paid.
But the certificates have been raised.
The certificates has been raised. So he has built the state.
Okay, so first one.
State has to be paid. The first one is 5.9 million. The second one is 6 million. The third one is 4.9 million. The fourth one is 8.4 million. So altogether, it is 25.49 million. All right.
But we already know that some money has been paid to the contractor.
And this is 2015. So he wasn't paid. So in September 2016, he decided to suspend the project and abandon site.
Okay, so abandon work.
Abandon work. So he abandoned.
And that is normal.
Of course, if you owe me for this much, between 2015 and 2016, that's a whole year. And in construction, with the inflationary situations we have in the country, a whole year of delay means a lot. Because if you had paid him for the first certificate, he would have plowed it back, reduced his liability. Now, this means that...
And this is because we're thinking the money he's using for the contract layout is not coming from him. It's coming from maybe it's a facility he took somewhere. Or
if it's a facility
or it is a material.
Even if it is his equity money, it is capital, and there's always cost of capital. So you can't hold someone's capital in perpetuity and not expect to pay a price. So he waited, he wasn't being paid, he quit. Then they paid certificate 4 out of the certificates, which is the least amount, 4.9 million, and paid that one. That is about
the certificate 4 was raised on July 15, 2016.
Yes,
but
no, it
ultimately was paid to him in that's 2 years. 2 years down the line.
3 years down the line, from 2015 to 2018. Then he got paid 20% of what he has billed for. Don't talk about the ones he hasn't done, so he hasn't billed for. That is why this project will cost more than this 25 million. Okay. So now he's paid that one and he's expected to go back to site. Listen, if I have costs to the bank and 25 million locked up and you give me 5 million out of it, I'm going to the bank to go and reduce my exposure. So he goes to reduce his exposure. He doesn't come to continue the work. Now, we are forced then to terminate him.
So we terminated.
So
who did we turn to?
So we terminated him in July, and then he sues us. Then you are terminating me for not paying me. If you had paid me, I would have done the job. So now he sues us.
Is it normal in contractual and procurement process
it is poor
terms?
Contract management.
On whose part?
If you are terminating him,
the one who was given the contract,
you normally terminate someone for a breach of contract. Who has breached in this case? The guy, if you had paid him, he would have worked. So you are in breach. So if you now terminate him, he has every right now. He doesn't have any obligation. He now has to go to court to go and recover his money. He has to go and recover his money. So now we terminate him, and then the report says that the Highways Ministry received a proposal from Haijeng. Receiving of proposals is solicitation. It is not a procurement method. So you can't use this to select someone.
But now hold on. This is a road. Was given to a first contractor. The contractor was delaying albeit because he was not being paid on time, and subsequently the contract was abrogated, whether it was abrogated or not. At the end of the day, we've had another entity that is expressing interest, a proposal. And you're saying that this important road, which is an emergency for the residents, etc., and I'm sure that at the time they would have been complaining, cannot be contracted on these terms of a proposal?
See,
how is that an affront to the procurement law?
We used national competitive bidding to select the first one, Marlin Investments. If for whatever reason Marlin is not ready to continue, go back to that same process. Pick the second person in that same process and use the person.
So we should go back to the number of contractors that were shortlisted?
Yes. And pick the second person in the process and use the person.
And if that person or if that entity was not interested, you go to the third? You
can go to the third, or you can retender. You can retender and do a new process. Because in any case, between 2015 and 2018, the cost of that road would have increased such that there will be a variation. In principle, in theory, we always say that when the variation is going to be more than 15% of the existing contract, retender, because then it is significant.
I see.
So if you want to retender, you go for sole sourcing. I would love to see on which basis the sole sourcing approvals were given.
But before we get there, now let's listen to the MP. We're going to watch the MP because the MP says that he had been doing a number of backdoor, if not back-end activities in trying to draw the links between the Ministry of Roads and trying to get to urban roads and even get to the Chief of Staff to get this whole road project ongoing in this constituency.
I'd like to commend you for your remarkable, this to his, the Second Secretary of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, to commend you for your remarkable contribution towards the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda through your provision of meticulous service to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana. I'd like to respectfully also to bring to your attention a 7.5-kilometer road under construction located in my constituency, the Lejogo constituency. The road contract was signed between Government of Ghana and Marlin Investment Company Limited. The contractor, after having worked on the road for about a year, demobilized and abandoned the project as a result of non-payment of certificates. The 7.5-kilometer road has not seen any works since last quarter of 2016. This road is a dual carriage road, the only road that connects Spintex Road directly to the beach road. Now, let me come to another paragraph. The very bad state of the tertiary link has turned the Lekman Hospital into a white elephant. That is avoided by both patients and doctors due to difficulty accessing the facility. Some pregnant women in the past have had their pregnancies terminated and their health put at risk by this road. Mr. P.V. Obin of blessed memory was transported to the Lekman Hospital on this road with a journey from the point of sudden illness to the hospital taking over 45 minutes instead of the less than 10 minutes that it would have taken if the road had been constructed. Look at what I said. Mr. Executive Secretary, I have visited almost every public officer with the capacity to do something about this road, from the Minister of Roads and Highways.
And subsequently, it also got to him that the ministry had issues, maybe some funding issues, and that seems to have played out in trying to make a choice for the third one. And what does it say for the third?
Okay, so after the second person approached us, he was given a contract approved by PPA on single source basis. He did some work, the cost is not stated, he abandons it. So a third person approaches, and that is DSR Holdings, approaches the ministry and says, I can help source funding. It's not that I can do the road, I can help source funding. The question I ask myself is, what is the credit rating of DSR versus what is the credit rating of Ghana? Ghana currently, I think, has a rating of B or B+. So is DSR better than us in terms of credit worthiness?
Well, we need money.
But if they are not better than us in terms of credit worthiness, it means the cost of the capital they are bringing will be higher than if the state.
Well, we don't know that. Is that not why
in the world of finance?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, is that not why we have the Procurement Act making provisions for emergencies?
The Procurement
Act
doesn't legislate on funding. you must have funding, you must have a budget to be able to spend.
So DSR is not the one going to implement the project?
Because from point 20, it says that the DSR Holdings, in consultation with the ministry, has mobilized a contractor to site. Now, here is my concern. If this is an international agreement, because it's a Dubai company, it means this funding agreement must go to Parliament, must be approved by Parliament. If Parliament has not seen this, if Parliament has not approved it, we don't have the funding. So if you have now mobilized someone, it means you have created a contract or a liability for the state. If it goes to Parliament and for whatever reason, Parliament does not approve it, what are you going to do with it?
But there are always pre-contract activities that are initiated.
Pre-contract activities technically means the designing of the road and all that. Those are pre-contracts. Funding is something
we can even begin
do.
work as part of pre-contract.
No.
And payment is made.
No. Pre-contract activities is everything that happens before you award a contract. That is pre-contract. So you can't say that we have mobilized someone to site when you don't have the funding approval, because then whatever you are doing can be rendered null and void by virtue of Parliament not approving it.
So let me ask you this. What the Ministry of Information is telling us could rather lead to a long time or a delay.
Judgment to death.
Oh, not necessarily. Well, I
judgment.
Oh, no.
See,
well,
once you
rather
mobilize to site, it means the contractor has spent money to do mobilization. Now, if you don't get the funding approval, you still have to pay him for mobilization at least.
But is it not well within the right of the ministry and government in particular to mobilize a contractor to sites looking at the exigency or emergency of the road?
If I'm taking,
there's been agitations, there's been media advocacy, there's been concerns that have been raised by high public opinionated people.
If I'm taking the technical word mobilization, basically you have appointed a contractor, you have given him instruction, he has started doing mobilization.
Because that's what they're doing. This is life.
So you are saying mobilizing tools, equipment, materials to site. That is mobilization. It means a commitment has been made.
But what's wrong with that? The government of Ghana can pay in lieu of us getting the funding for that.
You cannot commit when you don't have approval. That is what the law says. For you to have any international transaction, it is a condition precedent. Parliament must approve before you commit.
But this is a road for which the agitations have even led the MP being in hot waters.
Let me take you to the methods of procurement from the Act. Now, when you come
from the Public Procurement Act.
Yes. When you come to Section 40, which talks about single sourcing.
Which page are you reading?
Page 38. Let's come to page 38.
Okay, I have the Act here.
Yes.
Page 38.
38. Yes.
Okay.
So it gives you exceptional conditions under which sole sourcing or single sourcing can be used. Now, it says the first one is where the supplier has exclusive rights. So, for example, we want to buy Microsoft Office licenses. The rights sit with Microsoft. You can choose to go through a Microsoft partner, which is a reseller, or go to Microsoft directly. If you go to a partner, the partner has his margin. So if you want to create value, you go to Microsoft. In that case, because he has exclusive rights to that license, then you
and here creating value means reducing cost.
Reducing cost, yes. So then you can use this methodology. Then you come to the second one, where there is an urgent need for goods, works, and services, and engaging in a tender proceeding or any other method of procurement is impractical due to unforeseen circumstances.
This is where we are, B.
So this is where we are, but there's a caveat. This emergency should not be as a result of dilatory conduct on the part of the procurement entity.
What does it mean?
That means that you cannot create an artificial emergency by your own doing and then come and use this method. Okay,
so which artificial emergency has been created by the entity or government, which is the awardee?
Yes. So because they did not pay Marlin to do their job and it has delayed and the people are now rising up in arms, it has created an artificial emergency. This is not an artificial emergency. The next one is when there is a catastrophic
This is an artificial emergency. I disagree with you on the subject.
It is an artificial emergency. I'm saying that it is not a real emergency. It is an.
It is not an artificial emergency.
If they had acted, if they had acted appropriately at the right time, we shouldn't be in this place. So you can't decide if you know you have to do this now. You can't decide to go to sleep and wake up at 11 a.m.
Well, now we've gone to sleep, but this is the reality.
Yes, this is the reality. So you see, in this case, somebody must be held accountable. somebody must be punished for this.
In Ghana?
That's the problem. That is the problem we have in Ghana. So people go to sleep on their job, people create liabilities, people create emergency, and now we circumvent the law to make room for this to happen. Now, when nobody goes punished, this will continue until thy kingdom come. The third one is catastrophic events, where like the Goyle incident at Circle. NADMO now has to respond.
Okay, so now we've responded to it with the act.
We know, yes.
So we're finished. Which page do you want to go again on the act? I think we're done.
I think on the act, yes, this explains it. So now my keen interest is on what basis, in the case of the second contractor who was mobilized, abandoned, and we are now going to this one. In both cases, PPA approved the single sourcing. On what basis? I would love to see the letter PPA issue because it's quoted here. On what basis was that approval given? Because you see, PPA has the right to also say that, you know what, you can't go and create a mess and then come and tell me to use.
We spoke to the MP who
PPA
said that he had liable information indicating that that contractor, the second contractor, had satisfied all the necessary requirements in terms of having the funding to, on emergency purposes or basis, undertake the contract as speedily as possible because of the agitations that they have picked up on the ground. So
again, you asked the procurement entity when they were contracting the second contractor who approached them with a proposal, what kind of capacity assessment did they do? What kind of pre-qualification did they do? You should be able to see that this guy has what it takes to do this job
in Ghana.
And if
you do all these things in Ghana.
Yes, that is how you
we
do
need
procurement.
the road. You two are saying
that is how you do procurement. If you plan ahead, you see, that is the reason why every year we have a procurement plan. Everybody plans that next year. So we are in 2019 now. We are in July. By November, the minister will be reading the budget. It means now, by now, every department should be planning for what it will do that will feed into the budget. Now that plan is presented to PPA every year, ahead of the year. So why can't we plan and find the money and execute the project? Now, anytime you delay a project, you are increasing the cost of the project because the cost is not going to be static. And the contractor would always give you a contract or a proposal that will tell you that my price is valid up to this period. Beyond this period, I'll bring a variation. So it is in our interest to ensure that we have a variation clause on what will trigger the variation and how you can calculate the variation. All this is something that is taught and is practiced. So we are not practicing what is being taught. So we are going to have a situation where we will have a cadre of procurement people who can't apply what they learn in school. And that is a clear and present risk for Ghana.
Who are the individuals or the entities that are breaching the Procurement Act then?
The corporates
in relation to not only LECMA but other roads that seem to be abandoned and have to be
with the tacit support of PPA, because PPA has the mandate to tell them that go back and do the right thing. So, for example, if I was sitting there, you come and tell me you want to do this, I say that.
How will PPA do that? The head of the authority itself was appointed by the president in consultation.
Process. If your first person, selected person, couldn't do it, go and pick the second person and then use the second person. If you do, as soon as you do sole sourcing, if they had given us the price for the second person, the second contractor, Highjeng Construction, if they had given us what the cost was, and we had gone back to the NCT to go and check what the cost of the second person is, then we'll be able to tell whether this makes sense. But if that information is not given, it's difficult to check. But that will be my default position. Let's go and check that one and see what was offered.
But just hold your horses for the meantime. And now let's go to the area itself, the LECMA Road. And Maxwell Agbagba, you may have seen him in that picture that went off your screens some few minutes ago. He's back. And Maxwell, what are you seeing? Already you're showing us pictures of bulldozers as well as graders. And we also have some great gravels there, giving us the indication that at least the people should be happy. They're seeing some work.
Exactly, Roland. Some of the residents that I've been speaking to say, I mean, for some time now, they saw the roller here, they saw some of the earth-moving machines, the grader, and others here, but they had not seen any action until JoyNews came into the picture and then held, one of the biggest morning shows, here on the Lekma Road. Some of the residents that I've been speaking to are very excited by this. They say that this is the first time they are seeing real action as to the tarring of this road. Let's speak to some of the residents here to find out from them what exactly they make of this. I have the president here with me, Emmanuel Metonunu.
Yeah.
Okay, and then another resident here.
Senanu Hache.
Okay. Emmanuel is actually the president of the Residents Association. Can you tell me, when exactly did you see some, work actually happen, some real work, I should say?
Yeah, thank you very much. After the multimedia, Joy, Adum, they all came here. I think a few days after, we noticed hard calls that they've dammed the bitumen on the road over here. And then I think that it's a step in the right direction because the residents, let me go back a little, from January, I think they held a first demonstration around the Agbliza electoral area, at Agbliza taxi rank. And after that first one, when the MP came, they signed a contract somewhere in March. The contractor came on site, but then he came to set up his site settlement, but he didn't come on site. There was no machine, nothing on the site. Okay. The second demonstration was on the 24th of June when the MP came. And after the 24th of June, then multimedia, a lot of awareness, multimedia, a lot of media houses started trooping in. After the media house started trooping in, then this thing was done. But then all successive MPs in Lejakuku here have contributed their quota to the construction of this road. It's a very big project. It started from 2003 when President Kufuor came to cut the sword for the construction of this road. And it was one lane. And then later was expanded to a 2-lane, so they had to pay compensation and demolish some of the houses which were on the road. Yeah. That was done in 2010. Somewhere in 2013, that's when we saw real work being done. When you look at the road carefully, you look at the size of the road, you look at the drainages on the road, you look at the relocation of the high tension, relocation of the pipelines, and even the leveling of the road. It was just left with the tying of the road. And all this was done during the era of the former MP, Honorable Benita Seno Kitidria. In 2016, this road was a major campaign issue in Lejakuku here. Because when you watch all successive MPs, the very past MP, immediate past MP, did a lot of work. All the work you see now, majority of it, the gutters, the big drainages, the big bridges. When you get to Agbliza, you get to the Lekma Hospital, you get around La Scala, all those things were done. So we're expecting that the little job that is left, that's putting of the bitumen and tying of the road, would have been continued. But for 2.5 years of this current MP, we've seen nothing. So residents are agitating, residents became very frustrated. As we are standing here, before you move, you could check from your shoes, you could check from your microphones and stuff. Look at the cars, all the cars, some of them are even 2018, 2019, but they look very old. It's because of the state of the road. And transportation fares on this stretch of the road are very expensive because of the state of the road. When you pick Uber, you pick taxis over here, most people don't want to come. You understand?
Let me just add that I've been speaking to some taxi drivers at the taxi rank just some meters away from this place, and a lot of them tell me that because they do not have ACs in their vehicle, sometimes they can't even roll up. Even when it gets very dusty, they cannot they cannot roll up, and they just have to endure the 7.5 kilometer stretch. A lot of them also have been complaining about how they have to change shock absorbers because they simply cannot help it. Their cars break down a lot of the times, and it costs them a lot of money to get them fixed. At a point, they say they consider transferring cost to their passengers, but that didn't work out. Let me speak to you. You are also a resident here. One thing that we noticed around here, it's the dusty nature of all the buildings here. It doesn't really matter what kind of structure that it is. It can be a mansion, but you definitely would see, some dust gathered around it. And that is the evidence of what we're talking about, the discomfort, created in here. What was it like for you?
This is the road 2 or 3 years back. You can't even wear white. Even as yesterday, I was coming from church when I saw that this stones corridors were put here.
I made a terrible mistake by wearing white today.
Yeah, you made a mistake, but thank God the road is being fixed. Yeah. But we thank the Residents Association, particularly the boys who live around Agbliza. They took it themselves when they blocked the road that no car is going to pass and no business is going to take place at the place that the road is fixed. It has to take the MP, the residents president over here to come and calm down the situation. Other than that, the road will not be fixed at all. Let me say we thank God because this leads to a major hospital over here, and we see prominent people who are sick and who are being rushed by ambulance died on the road to the hospital. few weeks ago, a pregnant woman delivered in a taxi. And let me tell you that our taxis are just like a pig because you can't watch them and you can't bath them. Because of the nature of the road, the taxis are so bad that even if you wear white, you can't even sit in a taxi. And look at a pregnant woman giving birth in a taxi that you can be in and you are seeing the ground just in front of you. But we thank God and we thank the residents and everybody that
it has not rained now, but I know that the discomfort actually cuts through all seasons, rainy season or the dry season. Tell me, what is it like after when it rains? What happens on the stretch?
When it rains,
now it has not rained, it's dusty. When it rains, what happens?
When it's a rainy season, it comes to another trouble. If it's also a dry season, it comes to another trouble. Right now it's a dry season. You can see the level of dust that is around in the atmosphere. And when it rains and you come here, sometimes my car, that's what I'm using, when I get around that blizzard, the level of water can come even close to the bonnet. You understand? You're passing through deep holes, not even potholes, they're manholes. You're passing through deep manholes. Some of the cars who cannot move through them, they get stuck, some of them get spoiled. And after the rainy season, you realize that most of the cars start rusting. So the discomfort that this road causes is a lot. And then, as I was saying, with a little history about it, first of all, I thank Multimedia a lot because you have a very, very, very big platform and you've helped to create a lot of awareness. And I think this is being done. I just pray that it's not a 9-day wonder because as citizens and residents of Teshie, we are going to hold the government accountable and make sure that the road is fixed. We are not going to use this for any kind of political campaign because we know that it's the residents and the citizens solely that have caused this awareness and agitation with a joint collaboration of Multimedia for this to be done. And I thank your network very much. After you came here, we are seeing this. And I pray that you come back again and inspect what they are doing.
Trust
that wouldn't
JoyNews.
be a 9-day wonder. No MP or the current MP, he did his best, but the awareness wasn't created that much. But when the residents and Multimedia came in, we got the necessary awareness that we needed to create, and the road is being done. All glory goes to all residents of Teshie, the Drivers Association, the residents around Agbliza, Lekuma, La Scala. We thank you all. Let's continue the good fight and lift the name of Teshie high.
It is understandable how this is turning into a Thanksgiving, service.
Yeah.
That is fine. But let me find out from your friend. 30 seconds.
Yeah, we thank God and we thank the residents and we thank the Joy FM for coming into our aid, and we pray that this road continue and it will not end anywhere. We must continue to the last end to Kofi Annan area there to link the main road.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. So you just heard from the presidents of the Residents Association here, Emmanuel Metelnunu, and then another resident. We are very excited that some real work, real action has started, on this road. And you can trust JoyNews that we're definitely going to keep, the tabs on this. I would monitor and make sure that they complete this road, and then some comforts, is given to the residents, here.
Well, it looks like all the issues have come to a head. We still have our procurement expert in the studio, Kwabna Tabidu. But look, it would mean that since all this great analysis is done, ultimately there is just one position on the subject of how the interpretation of the Procurement Act in relation to bringing in a third contractor has been done. And again, the position is that
the position is this. All these are not necessary. If we really want to create value, if we want to protect public purse, the methods that are being used here, there's no professional basis to justify this. There's no professional basis.
So professionally on one side?
Professionally, there's no basis to justify this. I would love to see the basis for which PPA gave these approvals for this first sole source, and then the first single source, and then the second one. Now, the second one, my concern is that we have now mobilized to site when we don't have Parliament's approval. So it means what is going to happen? We are going to see Parliament, irrespective of whether the deal, the term sheet that has been submitted, whether it is a good one or not. For political reasons, people are going to be whipped to make sure they approve this. And then our hands will be put into something that might not serve our interest, but we will be forced to do this. That is not how to do it.
What if ultimately it is not the money from Belarus to be sourced or engineered by the Dubai entity that is going to pay for this?
See, at the end of the day, the source of funding should be different from the execution of the contract. Whatever means you use to find funding, find it, keep it separate. come back, take the law, do the process that the law says. The default is a competitive tendering process. Do a competitive tendering process to make sure that you are getting the best out of it. This whole restricted tendering, sole sourcing business, there are exceptions. We are rather making them the norm. And there isn't any good professional justification for it.
Well, the politician would need to show something to the people.
But do it within the confines of the law. Otherwise, it is costing financial loss to the state. We want to see some people go to jail for this then.
Well, thank you very much. Kwabena Tabedu is a procurement expert helping us do the linkages with now the third contractor who has been mobilized to site. And we also know that the announcement has been made that funding will be coming from Belarus through financial engineering to be done by a Dubai-based company. Well, we hope that we're able to have matters all come to a head, and the people of Lejokuku and its environs and all those who tend to ply the road and use the road really have some good news to tell by the time the road is completed. But right here at JoyNews, we'll continue advocacy. And please, if you want to comment on the subject on all our social media platforms, make sure that you add the hashtags FixLekmaNow and JoyNews. Well, later today, JoyNews, of course, will also be beginning a campaign to demand a freer media space, a society in which journalists, media organizations, and other players are able to practice without fear or favor. The launch of that campaign is taking place live this afternoon at 3 p.m. on the channel. You can join the conversation now on social media using the hashtag Defend Media Freedom. And Raymond Aqua is going to join us after this break. We'll have some conversation shortly on the subject.